All right, when this first came down, BP gave us a small monetary amount to cover our losses, and they started hiring everybody down here. That monetary value lasted about 3 months. We had claims, we had to show our papers and everything else, and that monetary value just kind of dwindled as the people started working down here. Unfortunately, there were a lot of companies that had money that brought boats in from out of the area, and a lot of the people down here were overlooked. The Vietnamese community was vastly overlooked. They finally got some organization and got in. The charter boat captains, we had a little bit of organization, enough to get our foot in the door, and we were one of the first ones in, and we did well. There was people putting boats in that weren't even fishermen. Construction companies from Florida, up north in Louisiana, and all over the place, Mississippi and Alabama, they were coming in because they had the money to put the boats up, or they knew somebody who could get them in the back door or whatever. So there were a lot of people down here that were overlooked. The latest thing is that the computer with all the information in it was lost.
Oh, I heard that.
Convenient.
Yeah, okay. How convenient, right.
It was in the news. I just heard this a couple days ago, and I don't even know where I stand on that part of it. I do have a claim in form for the damages. I worked from the middle of May until probably the 1st or middle of February, about the 1st of February, somewhere in that area. And I do have a claim in for damages on my boat. I took pictures on a cell phone. I offered to send it to them. No, they did not do that. One of their top claims adjusters, I saw him down here. He and I were charter captains together. I fished with him several times. I know his wife. I've seen his kid. All right. And they turned around, and I'm talking to him, and they says, well, we don't have an adjuster in the area. We don't need an adjuster for yours because we already know what's wrong with yours, and we're reviewing your claim. Well, they told me to hold your boat and don't get it. I strongly suggest, the words, I strongly suggest that you do not get it fixed until we get your claim settled, in case we have to look at it.
Okay, well, that's...
I told them I am going back to fishing. I've got pictures. I know you can send a rep down. You did not send a rep down. I'm getting it fixed. So I was trying to even get it from the back door. It wasn't being followed up. Now, they told me they're working my claim. How can they work my claim when they don't even know what the damages are? I just had the boat repaired. I will start fishing. Sunday will be my first day with this boat in the water. I had the boat repaired to the tune of $3,400. I lost lower units, 2 lower units. I wound up replacing my motors. I damaged 5 props. I now am the proud owner of 4 props for this boat because they were damaged and I had to get other ones in the meantime. They had me running this offshore boat in shallow water. I never complained. I ran aground 5 times. One time I had to be pulled out off the mud flat by an airboat with 4 motors on it because 2 airboats tied up together could not pull me off. They almost flipped over. So I did run aground real good several times. The boat gets up in the mud, in the marsh. The biggest problem I had was every now and then we'd hit a spot where there was some oysters, and they scraped the bottom of the boat. They took the skeg off the lower unit, damaged props. I had one time I hit an oyster cluster so hard that I had oysters going 12, 14 feet in the air behind the boat. So them props looked like bowling balls. They had to be changed that night because I had to go to work the next day for BP. I worked every single day. I had no day off. There was no Sundays. There was no holidays. Some were long days. My longest day was the day that I went out to the actual spill site. I brought out a lieutenant colonel from the Army Corps of Engineers, 2 OSHA enforcement agents, and 2 high-ranking Coast Guard officials to do work on the skimmer barges, the Norwegian skimmer barges that were out there. I have all those bills. I have all those claims. They are, quote, reviewing it. It has been 2.5 months so far. They're still reviewing it. It's getting to be a big sickening joke. They want us to settle up by the 20th of April, which is the anniversary, the 1-year anniversary of the claim of the spill. They want us to get the claim in and settle up by the 20th, or we're unable to sue them. They said that once we sign this claim paper, and I own a business, our Freedom Charters, so once we sign this paper, they'll give me $25,000, and that will settle up my whole business for the next 3 years. And $25,000 divided by 3 isn't much to live on when you got a boat and equipment and everything else like this. So
about $8,700 a year.
It's not really even a scratch in the bucket. And once you accept that money, a lot of the poor people down here are doing it. Once you accept that money, you sign a paper saying that you are not allowed to sue them. So it's a catch-22, and I'm just letting it ride. I mean, I've already talked to an individual about something else that's going on where I had a signed contract with them, and halfway through the contract, they said that the person that signed the contract with me was not authorized to sign it, even though the person was representing BP and he was a top man down here. They tried backing out of it that way. They paid me partial, then they didn't pay me. So that's a separate thing, and that is going to be handled through legal representation.
I see.
That has nothing to do with the claim for the whole spill and everything else.
So generally speaking, you think relatively you did okay in your
I did well. I
BP?
did well through it. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but the charter boat fishermen had, both inshore and offshore, had a good representation. We have an organization, and we got in. There was a need for us right up till just recently. A lot of money came in and from other areas with their own boats and stuff, and a lot of the local people down here were overlooked. They were not used. They were used for certain things, and then they changed the program, and they didn't reuse the local people. They just says, okay, you worked for a couple weeks, so we're going to give somebody else a chance. And the main assignment area was out of Houma. I was already working, and I was on assignment, and I get a call. I had Coast Guard officials and BP people, and I had safety and medical on my boat. And I'm going out, and I get a call on my cell phone from Houma saying that they want to activate me tomorrow morning. Can I have my boat ready? I was already activated. The left hand did not know what the right hand was doing. It was such a mess. I will just call it a cluster and leave it at that. It was such a disastrous mess trying to figure out what was what and who was doing anything. People were being assigned. They had no knowledge of who they were. They had no knowledge of what they were doing. They had no knowledge that the boats were even assigned. In my case, it happened to me twice. I was already working, and I got called up to bring my boat down and go to work the next day.
But let me ask you this now. I've heard over that a lot of the oyster beds, because of the oil that's settling to the bottom and apparently the Corexit that was mixed with it in some places, that a lot of the beds appear to be dead, but BP seems to be reluctant to compensate people for that impact that it could have on their future, and they're offering this flat $25,000. It seems like they claim they were going to make the whole thing whole and make people whole, but if the fishery is totally ruined for the future, foreseeable future, it seems like $25,000 is an awful slim grant, like you say, for $8,700 a year.
$25,000 is a joke, period. Okay, over a 3-year, to cover a 3-year period, it's wrong. The deckhands, they don't get that much pay, but if you take around and you take that $5,000, You take that $5,000 and you divide it up, you're looking at $1,750 a year.
A year, yeah.
It's
people can barely live for a month on that, basically paying the mortgage and food and gas. And
I mean, they're going to be doing other work, but that's not anywhere near what they're losing. Now, your oyster fishermen, they should be getting the most of it because of the fact that the oyster industry did get freshwater diversions in there and killing all their grounds. You know, the oysters, they can't go to another spot and get fish like I can. They cannot go to another spot and get shrimp like the other people can because we move around. The oyster fishermen lease these waters from the state, this land underneath the water from the state. It is their property. One of my last assignments, and I've been to every division in this parish, all the way from St. Bernard all the way around to Grand Isle, and one of my last assignments was over on a beach down here, and we were actually digging tar mats the size of vehicles out, and the tar mats got into the sand and hardened up, and it was just like thick chunks of not concrete,
asphalt type stuff.
Yeah, almost like asphalt. And we were trying not to take any sand, but we have to take the sand that's oiled. And what they did was they kind of sifted it to get as much sand out so we don't destroy our fragile environment we have down here. We don't have that much area left with any beach. Most of our areas are rozos and bayous and all that. And I was up in Bay Jimmy area where it's heavily oiled at this time, and BP's trying to pull everybody back, I guess at least for the anniversary, so that the media doesn't find a bunch of work going on. And I'm sure they better get back out there afterwards and get more going on it. They are aware of what's out there. They've been working it hard. I was assigned to that for about 3 months. I went out there every single day, all through that west area.
Let me ask you this now. I've heard that the businesses that supply the material, sell you motors and props and, you know, repair boats and stuff, I've understood that a lot of them are being denied. Do you? I
was personally involved in that. One day when this started, I went up to Professional Sports up on Julia, up in New Orleans. He supplies nothing but fishing stuff. He doesn't get into hunting or anything else. This is a large professional fishing supplier. He repairs our rods and reels. We buy our rods and reels off of him. We buy every bit of equipment from the swivels, hooks, line, everything from this person. He repairs everything for us. I was up there. He had, I think, 9 employees plus his 2 nephews, his wife, and himself working before the spill. I stopped in there to see how he was doing because I was in the area, and there were 5 people left there that day, and one of them, it was her last day. So I said to this one of his nephews, Chris, I says, "Hey Chris, what are you doing?" He says, "Well," he says, "I'm only working about 3 days a week, and it's like a half day. There's nothing going on." And I says, "Well, I need a deckhand." He says, "I'll start tomorrow." I says, "Come on." So he stayed down with me until the end of the spill, till I got off the spill, which is right about the 1st of February. So he come right down with me, and he lived right here at my house with me and everything else. And we wound up, I wound up paying him the deckhand pay, and he did well. His brother and his aunt were the only 2 left running the entire store. And his uncle, who owns the store, was down here. He's got a captain's license. He was down here running boats for BP. He was running the charter boats because our charter boat restrictions, regulations on our contract said that we had to have a licensed captain to run our boats, where a lot of these other boats just had boat drivers. The big part of this story is his uncle's business up there. turned in a claim to BP. They do, I venture to say they do hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. I go up there and I'll spend $1,000, maybe $2,000, depending what I need. Some of my reels cost $1,000 a piece. So I'll spend money up there, and I know the rest of us do, and they do a good business up there. I wouldn't be surprised if his business probably goes up around $1 million a year. And that being said, he turned a claim in. And BP reviewed his claim, looked at all his papers, his taxes, and everything for the last 3 years, and they offered him $18,000 for a settlement.
It's like a slap in the face.
That wasn't even a slap in the face. It's just another one of them jokes. I have no idea what he's going to do or how he's going to do it. That's his business, his own personal thing. I do know that he left his wife in charge of the store, and he came down here, and he was running boats for the spill, just so he could make enough money to keep his business afloat. And he was an established business, and it hurt him to the point where he was ready to pack it in, and he was going to close the first of the year, but he managed to keep afloat, and now that we're back in business and things are going, he's able to get back on his feet. He's starting to work back on his feet, but he was ready to close his doors in January. You know, BP says, we're making it right, we're making it right. I see these people on television, oh, before the spill, I did this, and BP made it right for me. The only reason they're making it right for that guy is because they're paying him every time his face shows up on a commercial.
That's what I'm thinking.
All right, that's all there is to it. Because I'll tell you what, you walk down the street and look at everybody down here who fish. I'm not saying they made it right or wrong for me. They did well. I did well by them. Oh. But as far as them coming out and saying, well, we're going to give you this, and you can't sue me, or you can't do this, or we're working on your claim, don't get your boat fixed, that's not making it right for us. So don't say you're making it right when you're not. It's nothing but PRBS. That's all it is. That's like talking to a politician and trying to believe him. The oil is still here. I mentioned earlier, the oil is in Bay Jimmy. It's up in the marsh. It's coming out of the water. It's on the beaches around this area. There's tar mats, tar balls. And when I mean tar balls, it's not something you can pick up in your hand. Some of them are the size of football. Some are the size of automobiles. Tar mats. They aren't balls anymore, they're mats. And not a placemat you step on either. Something you can park your vehicle on. A couple inches thick. So all that is, and when it warms up again, this stuff that they dispersed, what the meaning of dispersing, I don't know. That's another word for hid, is basically, is going to come up. It's going to be showing up when we get our storms and our warm weather. And that's going to be it. They had another article in the paper about December. It said, we did tests in August, September, and October, and we know that all the methane gas that comes up from the thing is eaten up. We did these tests and we know it because the microorganisms that eat this methane gas also eat oxygen. And we tested this 34,000 square mile area, or 3,400 square mile, not thousand, 3,400 square mile area, and we found the lack of oxygen through the whole area. Well, good. They created a dead zone. What's that do to my fishing industry? But they were bragging about the methane being gone. They bring out the good stuff, not the bad stuff.
More of a
if they told the entire story. Now, I'm sure that the fish that I fish for, they are mobile. They are not in that dead zone. They moved out of the way. But some of the things that are in that area that the fishing relies on, like the sea cucumbers and all the things at the bottom, or the things that can't move that fast, they're gone.
And that bodes ill for the future, it sounds like, in terms of the future.
In that area, provided, now wait a minute, no it doesn't. Okay. In that area at this time, provided the currents do not allow something else to come in. If the currents allow the Gulf Stream or the Mississippi loop currents, the river loop currents, if they allow the water to mix, that dead zone can disappear real quick because it's just a lack of oxygen at that point. What has been killed that couldn't move out of the way is going to have to roll in with the tide and reestablish itself in that area if it's able to live on the bottom. We're starting to come back to fishing. We just had a successful shark season. That's only like a month long. My neighbor's building his second shrimp boat since Katrina. This one's a lot bigger, and it's going to be done by the 15th of May, or the 12th of May, I think. Shrimping is going to open up, and they'll be out shrimping again. Like I said, they can go to different areas. The oyster people, those are the ones I really feel sorry for, because they own the land, and that land has to be made right. Some areas are good and some areas are bad. BP can't just take oyster people as oyster people and say, okay, everybody gets this and that's it. And this has been their policy. If you're doing this, you get that. You know, it's a bad policy. They have to take each individual case, but they're so big. They're not in oil recovery business. They're in oil business. They're not in buying and helping the poor and other people. They're in oil business. All right, their oil did some damage, and I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of federal things going on. I don't think 3 years can be enough to find out what the damage was. It might just be a possibility as far as our fishing and our shrimping and our crabbing, that it really, because we push the fresh water in here and our fish can swim away they don't want to be in dirty water, bad water, they can swim away from it. It might be that our industry was not hurt that bad. So we still have to find out. We might have only had a 2-year loss, or we might have a 10-year loss. We don't know what's going to come up this summer. We haven't gone through that part of the cycle yet. If we get a hurricane and there's stuff sitting on the bottom, I could wind up with oil tar mats on my property if we get another Katrina in here or another hurricane. So we can't put a set figure, a set time on this. For them to say the oil is gone, no, you can't see it. If you go out there on the water, you cannot see it on the surface. But I can show you areas where it's embedded in the marsh. I can show you areas where it's on the beaches. They have not cleaned it up. They will be back after the anniversary, but they want to keep the press out, and rightfully so. They don't need bad publication. And like I said, these areas where it's at, it's confined at this time.
I see.
There's nothing wrong with our crabbing, our shrimping, or our fishing. There's oyster areas that are open. They're great. There are some areas where the oysters are impacted, and they're not being allowed to touch them anyway. You know, everything is regulated down here. So as far as our fishing and shrimping and crabbing, and even our oysters, there's nothing to worry about. I'm back to fishing. I'm eating the fish. I have customers coming down. I don't find any problem with the fish. They're out there in abundance.
Well, I've been eating the fish since I've been here, and I'm just enjoying everything. Crawfish,
that's why your hair turned gray, huh?
Yeah.
It's all good.
Among that, yeah, you better believe it. Let's see, there's, what do you hear about the oil spill claims facility and their behavior and demeanor in treating with the people, and Kenneth Feinberg, his behavior? He just got a $400,000 raise.
I don't work for BP. The hell he doesn't. No, yes he does. We knew that right from the start.
Yeah, they tried to make it like he was an independent operator, but he just got 400 more grand on top of a $2 million plus salary.
Yeah, they ought to take some of that and put it back into the community here instead of putting it in his pocket. He's well, see, I look at these people on TV. Here I am, I got a t-shirt on and a hat, and you've got the same outfit. These people on TV, I see them all up there, be they politicians or BP reps or whatever. They don't have to worry about getting laundry soap to wash their clothes. It's all dry cleaned. All right, I don't even own a suit as good as they have on their back, but these people are dictating to us what's good for us, you know, and for them to turn around and tell us they know what we need, it's ridiculous, because they don't live in our shoes. As far as the claims go, I've heard a lot of disgruntled people from over on the other side up toward Galliano and Lafitte and up there. I've heard a lot of disgruntled people up there, and rightfully so, because I went up there to one of the classes and I got to talk to a bunch of them, and they were not even considered for work. And yet, and this was in the beginning, I'm sure a lot of them did work, but they were not even considered for work, but they were told to take the classes, and that would put them on the list. All right? I was told I had to take the class because I was already working. And there were certain qualifications. You had to go there, here and there, and they had to show you how to handle different things, and all for personal protection, which was all well and good. I was already certified in that, but I still had to go through their course, and that was it. As far as them down here, a lot of people did finally get in here. One thing I did find toward the end, these people were let go, and I started working with other groups in different areas. Like I said, I bounced around to every division in this parish, and half the people that were working could not even speak English.
They were speaking what, Vietnamese?
They were speaking Spanish. They weren't from here. There was Cubans from Miami. There was Mexicans from Texas. These were people that were brought in to the workforce, and there was people over here in the neighborhood walking the streets wondering how come they weren't asked. The companies that were brought in hired their own people at their own discretion, and they were not told that they had to pick from the community. So yes, there's a lot of disgruntled people down here. That's the way the business went. The person I used for my deckhand, he worked at the store. He was only working, I think he was working about 15 hours a week at the store. Before he came to work with you. Before he came to work for me. So I hired a local. You know, I mean, I hired a guy that. But BP basically had no rules that you had to pick local? No, they had none whatsoever, and they didn't even know what boats they put on. I just hope they get it straight. Eventually, I hope they get it straight. Okay. I don't think that what they're offering over a 3-year period, with the signing a paper that you will not sue them, is justifiable to the people down here. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your interview. Nice seeing you again.